Bonjour à tous, welcome to another irregular verb video. This time we're looking at faire, which means to do or to make. Generally using faire is very simple. Whenever you use do or make in English, you can be fairly sure that you can use faire in French. The exception to that though is with certain sporting activities which in English use go. For example, in English we go skiing, we go swimming, we go horse riding. In French though, you do these activities. So for example, to go skiing in French is faire du ski, literally to do some skiing. And we also use faire quite often when we're talking about the weather in French. So in English we'll say the weather is nice, whereas in French you say le temps fait beau. The present tense of faire is quite simple compared to other irregular verbs. We have je fais, tu fais, ils, elles, on fait, nous faisons, vous faites, and ils, elles font. The only thing I want to mention here is the pronunciation of the nous form, which is nous faisons, not nous faisons. It should be nous faisons, but that's just not how it's pronounced. And of course, we need the nous form when we're making our imperfect, so we need to remember this one. Nous faisons. Passé composé is very simple. Faire uses avoir as its auxiliary, so we start with the present tense of avoir, and then to that add the past participle, which for faire is fait. So we end up with j'ai fait, tu as fait, il, elle, on a fait, nous avons fait, vous avez fait, and ils, elles ont fait. Imparfait, again, as I just said, we need the nous form of the present tense, which remember is nous faisons. Then from that we remove the ONS, which gives us fuzz. Yes, it looks like fez, but it's pronounced fuzz. And then to that we add the imperfect ending. So we have je faisais, tu faisais, il, elle, on faisait, nous faisions, vous faisiez, and il, elle faisait. If you say je faisais, tu faisais, il, elle, on faisait, nous faisions, vous faisiez, il, elle faisait, people will understand you, but it does sound really strange. So try to get the pronunciation right. Futur simple, again compared to other irregular verbs, is actually quite nice because it's at least a little bit recognizable. The stem is faire, F-E-R, and then of course to that we add the endings. So we have je ferai, tu feras, il, elle, on fera, nous ferons, vous ferez, and ils, elles feront. And if you know the imperfect and the future well, the conditional is really easy. We start with the future stem, faire, and then to that add the imperfect endings, and we have je ferai, tu ferais, il, elle, on ferait, nous ferions, vous feriez, and il, elle ferait. The subjunctive for faire, I think, is really nice. It's also quite easy to remember. We have je fasse, tu fasses, il, elle, on fasse, nous fassions, vous fassiez, and il, elle fasse. The good thing about this one is we don't have 6 distinct forms. What we actually have is an irregular stem, fasse, F-A-S-S, and then the endings that you would add to a regular verb. So if you know your subjunctive endings well, all you need to be able to do is remember that the stem for faire in the subjunctive is fasse. The passé simple, again, you're probably fed up of hearing me say it, but the passé simple is not something you need to know in any detail. You just need to be able to recognize it. The problem with faire in the passé simple is that it's very similar to the passé simple forms of être, so you need to make sure you don't confuse the two. We have je fis, tu fis, il, elle, on fit, nous fîmes, vous fîtes, and ils, elles firent. It does follow a very regular pattern despite the fact that it is irregular, but of course the être form in the passé simple is je fus, tu fus, il, on fut, nous fûmes, vous fûtes, ils, elles furent. So you need to make sure you don't mix the two up. I suppose one way to remember it is that faire has an I in it and être doesn't. I don't know. Learn it however you learn it, but just try not to get them mixed up. And then finally we have the imperative, which for faire is exactly the same as the present indicative. We have tu fais, nous faisons, and vous faites. Of course you don't need to say tu, vous, nous in the imperative, but they're the forms that we have. Normally you take the S off of the tu form in the imperative, but that would be strange in this case, so we leave it on, and we have fait, faisons, and faites. And that is everything. Remember that you don't need to be an expert on faire now. I don't expect you to learn everything in this video by heart and by the end of it be the grand master of irregular verbs. This is just an overview to give you an idea of what's to come and of all the different forms of verbs. If you want to have a look at some other irregular verbs, then there is a nice handy playlist for you to go to, and you can see them all. If there's anything in this video that you're not sure about, be it a tense or a word I've used or something, then you can go to my verbs playlist, and there's all the information that I have about verbs. That is it for this video. Of course, if you have any other questions, do ask, I will reply. And until next time, a bientôt.